Okay, now of course the other stuff that needs to be done before the roof can come off, we're going to have to disassemble the interior here. Going to have to take out the headliner. Got to replace this one anyhow because we got a tear in it here. But I'm going to pull it out and make sure I get all the parts put away. Of course, get the visors and stuff down too. The corner pillars will have to come out to accommodate that, and also I say just to aid in getting the dash out anyhow, which is a lot easier accessible because there's 4 bolts inside the vents up top here. So there's 1, 2, and then 2 on the other side, and then on the bottom, I don't know if we can show you that or not, right here you can see that bolt right there. Actually, you just loosen that up, there's one on the other side, and then what happens is the actual, once you get these bolts out, leave one or something in to hold her kind of in place, but the whole dash will kind of roll forward on those pivot points down here. So once you get it loose, the whole dash will kind of pull forward, so you can go ahead and remove everything. Again, I'm going to have to probably go ahead and pull the column here also, at least drop it. There's 2 bolts on studs that drop it down below there, so you can get that out of the way. I may have to disconnect it from the steering box in front, but that on the outside on the engine bay is just a roll pin that needs to be punched out of the coupler on the roll pin inside the engine compartment. So again, like I said, this is a pretty highly optioned rally, but right there's the coupler, and there is a roll pin in here, right here, that needs to be pushed out, and then the coupler will pull back and you can pull the whole steering column out. Alright, here we go on this my Challenger again here, the 73, getting the dash out. This is part 2. Back in there you can see a little hole right at the tip of my finger there. There's a little nut that goes on there. The bolts actually come through from the inside of the car, and there's going to be another one on this side too. There's 2 of them that essentially hold on. Here you go. Right. Let's see, right there is the other one. 2 nuts. So the bolts come through for the outside for the fuse block. That's going to need to be disconnected. I've reinserted, if I can find it here, I've reinserted one of these bolts in there to hold the dash in place. And then on the inside here, I'm hoping my flash is going to come on so we get some light, and it is not. So on the inside here, again, this car's kind of a mess, so be aware. But on the inside here, there you can see the fuse blocks now, and nothing is cooperating today. So, in the fuse block right here, and again, you're going to have to disconnect the column here. So these are the plugs right here that disconnect the column wiring right here, and of course that's going to have to come out. The 2 bolts or studs that were up in there have been removed, and this is them right here. Again, these are the studs that hold in this portion here up to the dash. So, and then in here, of course, I'm going to need to take not the 2 bolts out, but the 3 bolts. Let's see if I can point them out here around the column. There's one right there, one up there on the left, and again there's one up on the right there. You want that funky little flange. You can see the gasket kind of sticking out behind it here. So this whole flange comes out, not just the 2 bolts. You could probably get it with that way, but I'm going to open it up and replace that firewall gasket anyhow. And once that's done, the column will, in all intents and purposes, be free. You can yank it out. At that point, I've already gone ahead and taken the roll pin out of the coupler there. You can see right here, so the roll pin, and all I did for that was used a small bolt again and just gently tap it, and it'll pop it right out. So now next part is we'll get the column pulled. Alright, now with the column taken out, you can see the coupling down there, right there. And you can see how that works. That roll pin essentially just rides in that groove right there on that. So when the roll pin goes through, it holds the coupler in place. And what I did essentially is to get it the column out the rest of the way, not knowing how good or bad that coupling was going to be, I just took a pry bar and put in between and gently nudged it, and it actually nudged pretty quickly. And as you can see, it needs to go on in a certain way. You see that there's a shinier spot there, so it's a wider spot, so that's where the coupler needs to be reinserted on there. So when you're putting it back on, make sure that you can mark the outside of the coupler where that wider groove is going to be inside of here. Let's see if I can spot it. Right here, you can see it's a little wider groove in there. So you want to mark that on the outside of the coupler so you don't get crazy lining it up. And actually, I recall now from my 70 that I redid, it's actually got a spot right there. See that little notch there? That's going to show you where it lines up for your splines to reinsert the coupler. And of course, obviously, all of this will be cleaned up, redone. I'll clean it if it cleans up nice. I won't do anything with it, and it looks like it probably will. Obviously, there shouldn't be too much nasties underneath there for paint wise. I'll clean this up. A while back, I replaced the turn signal indicator deal, so I got this all painted up. You can see the difference in coloration between the two. So I may redo this again to get it factory correct, because this I don't think is supposed to be that glossy. Obviously, it's supposed to be more like this, a matte finish. Okay, now with the steering column removed, I've already disconnected the speedo cable, which is just a matter of pushing that. As you can see, the speedo cable has some issues here. Probably going to order a new one of those. But now go ahead and make sure you disconnect the rest of it. Anything that's impeding its removal, and obviously like the vacuum lines for the AC and things, are going to need to be removed. But like I said, with the column out, it was very easily, you can see right here, rotated on that pin, rotated on the pin on the opposite side too. So you can get in here, especially with the windshield out, and remove the rest of the wiring and things like that in order to get her to free up and come out. And then of course all the harnesses to the back and things like that. But once you get all that unplugged, she should pull out pretty easily. Alright, got the dash out. Of course, this is the back, and I knew this one needed help. As you can see, there's a bunch of patch stuff in here where apparently they had a meltdown at one time, and I knew that. And of course, common is on the fuse block where your primary comes in. Can't recall what this one was, but here's your primary wire. Of course, they had that bypassed and run through separately because of one of the meltdowns, and this is a common thing. I don't know that I would try to use a spade type bit for the amount of current that takes. Even in my 70 that I've done, very similar meltdown there. So I'd run a separate primary wire through the firewall and try not to run it through a small spade bit and melt out another block. I do have extras of these, so I'm going to replace it. Also, it looks like somebody's tried to remove the pad at one time. Again, you're going to have to take everything pretty much apart, get the glove box off. I'm going to disconnect all the terminals and things in here. I'm going to take pictures of it also, though, to remember where everything goes. And it's always, oh, there's another melted spot. Very beneficial to take still pictures so you know where everything reconnects. And actually, as you can see here, they completely bypassed the amp meter, because that's where the primary typically connects up there on that side of it. So other than that, like I say, you're going to have to kind of dig around. There's some spots on the up underneath the dash here where you have some additional bolts that are holding that top pad on too. So, and of course that's the instrument panel right there, but up where the lighting and stuff is, there's some there. I can't recall again where they are on this part of it, but you can see where it's already coming apart right there. So if we can see it in here, I don't know. I have another one. But anyhow, there's quite a few nuts on there to hold the pad on, which is good. So disassemble it all. Don't try to bend it or anything like that, of course. Then once you get it all apart, my plans are to, again, fix this up, clean it up. I'll probably sandblast the whole thing, repaint it the trim black, get everything polished up and looking good before she's reassembled.